Everyone, welcome back to In Case You Missed It with Christina Williams. It's been a minute since we last tapped in, so this really feels like we're just catching up, and what a moment to be back because there's so much happening right now. First of all, the WNBA just ratified a brand new CBA after 17 long months of negotiations, and it's one of the most transformative deals we've seen in sports, from the revenue sharing to major salary increases for the players, and of course, some key benefits that will impact players' day to days. And we're also about to head into one of the most chaotic off seasons ever. Two expansion drafts, a WNBA free agency where over 80% of the players are all free agents. We have the WNBA draft, WNBA training camp, and a WNBA preseason, all before the season tips off in May. I'm joined today by two WNBA veterans who were in the room during the negotiations at the table, getting it all done. Please help me in welcoming in three-time WNBA champion and executive committee's vice president, Alysha Clark, and WNBA player and executive committee's treasurer, Brianna Turner. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So before we get started on all things WNBA CBA, I know that the Women's March Madness is underway. What's the most exciting time about this part of the women's basketball calendar for you both?
I mean, I just think the excitement of what March Madness is, literally anything is possible. And you've seen that in these games, the Kentucky game yesterday, just like coming down to the wire, the USC game the other day, like it's just insane. There's so much that can happen. So I love the unpredictability of it all.
Yeah, I love getting to see teams that I didn't really get to catch during the regular season. Like, it's so awesome seeing Virginia's run. Obviously, I shout out Notre Dame. They making it to the Sweet 16 is really huge. I'm really happy for Niel. But it's just really exciting. And I mean, I'm going to restaurants. I see so many men's games. I'm like, can y'all put a TV or two on the women's games as well? But I mean, it's just so exciting. So much basketball. Like, who doesn't love March?
Absolutely. So much excitement happening around the women's game. And so after 17 months of negotiations, we learned this week that there was a vote by the players to ratify the 2026 WNBA CBA collective bargaining agreement, and it's still pending a vote from the Board of Governors. But the expectation is that there will be a 2026 season and it'll start on time. What did this moment represent for both of you? You both have been a part of this process since the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, one, just the turnout, right? The power of the union. And the fact that we were able to get, I think the actual number was around 93% of participation of eligible voters. Like that's a huge deal, that to be able to reach that many players and have them cast their vote. And then not only that, but to have it be unanimous for the approval was something that we were on the executive committee and our PA staff was just so proud of. And we were out here canvassing, okay? We were out here reaching out to players, making sure like, hey, did you cast your vote yet?
Players all over the world at that. Players still overseas. So we crossing time zones, oceans.
Yeah, DMing the young ones because we know that's how they respond fastest. Like, it just all things being like, have you cast your vote yet? But just to see that turnout and just knowing that everyone is on board with what we were able to just negotiate it's so incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything AC said, and obviously it was a long process, but shout out to the players and our PA staff for staying engaged and staying focused. I think there was a lot of propaganda out there at certain points, but I'm proud of us for sticking true and sticking together as the 156 and 80, however many players it's going to be this year.
You said there was a lot of propaganda. What do you want to clear up?
No, I would just say, like, obviously people are not in the room, so I just feel like social media just had so many just like sources say. I'm like, I'm in these rooms and the source is inaccurate.
Yeah.
We couldn't tweet like, actually, this is incorrect, but I wanted to so badly. But I just think it was just like, obviously people getting information from different people and just like, not everyone's sources is accurate. So I would just say, if you're on social media and stuff and you see sources say, you need to get that firsthand account first. Not everybody comes with the facts and comes correct. Even if they are a trusted source, close source, whatever the case may be, it ain't always accurate. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yes.
Well, I know my media peers have to do a lot better with their sources. But, during those final days of negotiating, there were a couple of reporters camped out the Langham Four, shout out to them. But that
Yeah.
negotiation process and the marathon that it was, what were some of the toughest moments or points being in that room, that war room in the final days of getting a deal done?
I think right off the top was just the amount of time that was taken in between responses. And that was, I mean, we watched so many shows, we went on a lot of walks, all the things just to, stay ready and engaged for when a response did come. And that was interesting. But the other piece of it was like we knew coming into these negotiations, the biggest elephant, the biggest sticking point was the revenue share. And so every day is like, okay, we want to talk about this. And it's like, well, what about revenue share? We'll get to that. We want to talk about this. Well, what about the revenue share? All of this is tied to the revenue share and what that's going to look like. And so there were some days that were a lot more frustrating than others because it was like we felt like we took 2 steps forward and then they'd come back in with something else. And it was like, this is now we just took 5 steps back. Like, what are we doing? But in those final days, it was like, okay, we're talking about this. Are we getting closer to the revenue share? Like, what are the conversations about that? And we were asking our PA staff, like, did they say anything about that? They know this is the biggest piece. And so I think, they were trying to hold off on that as long as possible because they knew that was the biggest piece throughout this entire negotiation. And then kind of in those last probably 48 hours is where you saw the most progress when it came to revenue share, to the point where it was like almost, responses were very quick, like back and forth. Our staff was running in and being like, okay, we talked about this. How do we feel? And so it was like those last 48 hours, like we could have did all the rest of this and like move that timeline up a little bit.
Yeah, I would say for me, some of the hardest points were just like the late nights. Like, I don't know, when I was thinking like initially before it started, I was thinking late night, like 10, 11, not like 2, 3 a.m. So I was definitely waiting for security to come pick us out. Every time that clock struck midnight, so I'm like, Cinderella, take me back home. It's time for me to go back home. So it was just a surprise, I think, just to be there, such late nights. But obviously it turned out for the best. So I guess it
Yeah.
had to happen.
Were there any points in being a part of those negotiations, or how close did you feel like there was a possible scenario where there might have not been a season?
I feel like that was just kind of the idea in general going in because a strike was on the table the entire time. So it was like, we know we're either coming in here, we're walking away out of this Langham Hotel with a deal done, or we're walking out and we're going on strike. So
Mhm.
just from the very beginning, that was always a possibility. Obviously, we were hoping that by us being there and negotiating that, it would be the former. And that's what we were pushing for. We were trying to show that, hey, we're here to negotiate. Okay, you don't want to talk about revenue share today? Okay, we'll engage and have a conversation around something else to just show that we're going to continue to negotiate in faith because we wanted to play. Like, we wanted to play this summer, but we were going to do whatever it took using whatever tools we had in our toolbox to make sure we're also getting what we deserve. So I think that was just the common sentiment from the very beginning. It was like, it was going to be one or the other. So the choice is yours, really.
Yeah, honestly, everything AC said hit it right on the mark.
So, as members of the executive committee, what were some of your responsibilities during these negotiations?
Go ahead, Brianna, Hidden Figures.
I would say a lot during the CBA stuff. We were just like really communicating with players, with player reps. Obviously, it helped out like me and AC playing in AU and like Feed, Stewie, and KP and at Unrivaled because they were able to talk to a lot of players there as well. But really just like communicating, bridging the gap. As treasurer, like I signed tax documents, really nothing too exciting. I signed a lot of tax forms. But yeah, it was really just like a lot of communicating, like between PA staff, between player reps, between players who just reached out individually. So honestly, just lots and lots and lots of communicating.
You need to talk about all the charts and the numbers you was running. Like, don't, tell the people what you was in
Honestly,
these rooms doing.
I was playing like honestly practice GM. Like when they obviously we ended up at a 7 million cap, but whenever they were at like I think they were at like 5.65 and the maps still at 20%, I was like crunching the numbers like we're gonna have to tell people on the roster. The math is not really mathing. So I have like my Excel spreadsheets with all my like formulas in there. I was like, well the cap is this is change this. I feel like if any GMs need any help, for real, shoot me an email or something.
She has all of your teams.
Numbers for almost every single team. I got you. I can help. I can tell you where your cap can land.
No, Breezy was, a a freaking whiz when it came to the charts, and she was really helping paint the picture of just like when they would come back with a cap or what was feasible so that the middle, like the group of us in the middle of the league that make up the majority of the league weren't left out. And it's like, when you're looking at big numbers, it's like, okay, the cap is 5.6 and the supermax is this and the medium is this. And it's like, well, what does the minimum look like? And so Breezy was literally going through every team, putting it in and being like, this is what it would look like if we were to be at this level, at this cap. And she did that for every cap they came back with, every up. And she was like, it can't be less than a $7 million cap if we want everybody to be elevated and get a raise. And so by her doing that, it really just like, it was almost like, when a lawyer breaks down lawyer language in layman's term, like that's literally what she did with the numbers. And it was so helpful. And I'm like, she didn't want to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it and highlight her for that because it was amazing. And then I'm like, is this what you majored in, Breezy? Like, what was it? She was like, no, I just learned being here these days. And I'm like, you're ridiculous. This is amazing.
And also shout out to Michael on our PA staff. He's like the wizard. So I feel like I'm just like the junior. He was showing me so much stuff. So shout out to Michael too, because he is supreme at all the charts and numbers. And he definitely helped me out when I was trying to figure stuff out as well.
That was like my next question about being directly in a room within these negotiations. Like, what did you learn about how the union operates and how the league operates?
I mean, I just think just overall the entire picture, the entirety of how you have to approach these types of negotiations, you have to look at the whole picture. And the league is, their thing was about like path to profitability and making sure the league sustains. And we were like, yes, we also want that too, but we also want to pay players what they're deserving to be paid. And we also want to share a meaningful share in the business that we're helping create for you on the league side. And so I think just like it's a difference of perspectives, right? There were things that the league didn't think through or didn't think about. And we're just like, oh, this is an expense. Let's get rid of that. This is this. And it was the player voices and perspectives that had to bring those things back on the table and be like, okay, you're trying to take away housing, but did you think about like what that looks like with the Olympics in LA in 28? Did you think about all the international players and the young players coming into this league and only having such a short window to be able to find a viable place to live? Did you think about the safety? Did you think about discrimination and racism that's going on in just the general broad population in our country right now? And so a lot of the player perspectives had to bring those things back onto the table. And so I think that's where like the difference was when we were having these conversations, because they're thinking numbers and all these, and it's like we're thinking holistically of like the experience, the importance, and the numbers. Like we have to think about all of it because it's our livelihood.
Absolutely. And you brought up an interesting point in terms of rev share and making sure those middle tier players were also included, because I know in the 2020 CBA, a lot of players that I talked to across the league, they felt like they were left out in that last negotiation. How does tying the salaries to the league's growth just change how the players are valued in this league?
I mean, I think it just really sets a new standard, and I think it even helps in future negotiations. So I think we really wanted to put stuff in here that the next CBA, when it rolls around, the players can build on it. So obviously the things in rev share time, we're able to get some meaningful retirement benefits in there. Shout out to AC for that. But we really wanted to just like set a strong base for not just the 2026 CBA, but for CBAs to come.
Breezy just mentioned the retirement benefits, and I know you made several posts about how that was a huge win, that you wanted to make sure that, the players who helped grow this league were also included in this CBA. Can you talk to us about why this was a huge win?
Yeah, I mean, even looking back to the last CBA, this was a conversation that was brought up then. But where we were, I mean, it was a pandemic and all the things that were happening. We were trying to just get a season that just kind of got pushed out of the way as like not a top priority at that moment. It was like, we're just trying to increase salaries right now. Like we'll have to circle back to that and like hopefully come around to be able to do something with retirement in the future. But right now the priorities are X, Y, and Z. And so this go around from the very beginning, I was very adamant about doing something for retired players. And we had gone through different, avenues of what that could look like. And, could it be an escrow plan where they, something goes in and they can pay out over time? And then the league came back with the one-time payment. And so we kind of adopted their model of like, okay, if this is what you want to do, what you just offered is so embarrassing that you shouldn't even feel comfortable or confident to have actually put that on paper and sent that through. And so when we started working within that system of a one-time payment, it was like, okay, well, let's tier it out because it was almost like 2 tiers. And it was like, okay, this and this. And it's like, these are the women that when they were being paid such low salaries, were still out here showing up and hooping. Like they were keeping the league alive. When people watched, it was because there were players out here that were just so fun and so skilled and just so competitive. But then, we're having to leave and go overseas and then having to make decisions like, okay, I'll sit out the W season and get paid for my overseas team to be able to like live my life as, I should as a professional athlete. And so for me, it was like this go around, we're the last bridge group to be able to like have that connection to the OGs that we saw firsthand the sacrifices that they made. And it's time that they get at least something to say thank you for keeping this league alive so we could have this moment to be able to fight for what we deserve even more. And so when we were talking numbers, I was like, listen, for 12 plus years, it can't be anything less than 6 figures because that to me, not only the average career anyway is 3.5 years. So if you make it to 5 years, you should have a significant little bump of something to be able to go invest into your 401k because again, of the salaries that they were being paid, you couldn't max out your 401k. And I'm one of those players. I had to choose with my $36,000 salary. Am I going to put half of that in my retirement or am I going to use what I get after taxes to be able to live and buy groceries? And I chose the latter. And so for me, I'm like, that's the reality of the players before us. And so even now, is it enough? Absolutely not. I think every payment should have been 6 figures and above. But I'm like, at least it's something to just show our gratitude to them for allowing us to have and be in this moment. And so I'm so proud of it. And shout out to Erin. She's the one who was fighting, crunching numbers, finding ways that, to be able to get a max contribution from the teams and the league into the 401k. So that way these players now that are under the CBA moving forward will have significant contributions to their 401k that can actually look like a little something when they walk away. And then hopefully by getting something in now in this next CBA, they can fight for long-term health care or making something, an annual payment for players that have come before, like something, but at least we got it in writing now and they can build on that in the next go around.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, whenever you get something as big as this, there are some sacrifices and compromises that you do have to make. But I do think that this is a start to something incredible.
Yeah.
Throughout the negotiations, there were also several player-led protest moments over the past year, I want to say, during the season, in the off season, that really drew attention to the process of what you all were going through and fighting for. One example, obviously, All-Star, the Pay Us What You Owe Us shirts was a huge thing. The Fisa Collier's infamous exit interview that put pressure on the WNBA leadership. How did those moments influence what was happening behind the scenes with the union's approaches in these talks?
I think it just showed a united front. And like All Star is one of the biggest events in the W season. So to have like that happen and like All Stars like typically like all like the top players in the league. So I think that just takes a huge stand. There was obviously several like social media activations, but obviously there was a lot of stuff happening behind closed doors. But I think those like front and center things, and especially like what Fee said in her postseason interview last year, like I think those moments are really powerful and definitely like benchmarks to help us to get to where we end up finishing the CBA.
Yeah, and I think it just shows, the importance of the player voice, and we have to use what moments that we have carved out to be able to really send a strong message. So yeah, shout out to everyone over the course of the time that wasn't afraid to speak up and use their voice, especially now. And I mean, you saw a little backlash about it, right? People were like, oh, they're saying too much. They're asking for too much. This is crazy. They'll never get it. And for me, it's like, you guys aren't sitting here on a day-to-day and you don't understand all this. And so we understand the trajectory and how the landscape has been changing. And so, yeah, we have the right to speak up and speak our truth. And that's been the thing in our league for so long is like, don't say anything bad. We don't want it to look bad on the league. And it's like, at some point, we got to hold them accountable. We have to air this out in order for something to change. If we keep sweeping things under the rug, they're never going to feel the pressure to have to make changes. And so I think that all those moments were just an example of us being tired of sweeping things under the rug.
Would you say that, so at the end of the negotiation, you obviously saw both sides popping champagne in the room. How would you say the relationship with the commissioner is now that you all have agreed to a new CBA?
I mean, I think just in the same sense, right, of we just continue to move forward. We got the deal done alongside with Kathy, and just what we've been doing now is just finding ways to continue to push this league forward. and just making sure that we're doing everything we can to be ready for this 30th and historic season that we have coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this doesn't get done without the league, doesn't get done without the players. So this whole negotiation was definitely just like a collaboration process. And like obviously, like we know like Kathy's commissioner, so we have to work with Kathy to and keep and both our goals is to keep progressing the league, the visibility, the gameplay, everything about it. So I think in the day we both sides knew that that was like the end goal.
See, you mentioned how there was a lot of outside noise about players asking for too much. But there was also like multiple reports that some players felt like you all were also asking for too much at one point in the negotiations. Was there division amongst the players in the final stretch? I mean, there was reports about a letter from Brianna Stewart and Kelsey Plum criticizing PA Executive Director Terry Jackson at one point. How did that moment shape the internal conversations and decision making happening from the inside?
And I don't think the final stretch, no, but I think that moment it forced conversations like really raw and open conversations amongst leadership and players because at the end of the day players have every right to express how they feel. If that's what they're feeling, they should be able to express those emotions and feelings. But it definitely created some internal dialogue within player leadership and all players to really just kind of like, yo, at the end of the day, like our goal is to make sure that the players coming in this league, the players here now are being taken care of, and the players that laid the foundation for us are taken care of. But yeah, there were heated conversations, right? And that's like anything. When you enter negotiations, there's gonna be people trying to pull, players one way or somebody trying to do something to create a divide. That's how it goes because that's just the reality of our society. That's the reality of how these types of negotiations go. But shout out to our staff for being able to make sure that we collectively came back together after that. And like, it just almost like reinforced our messaging of what we're fighting for. And two, I think part of it was just like people started getting nervous. When we opted out 16 months ago, everyone's like, yes, we're standing on business. We're doing this. Like, here we go. But as things start happening and getting closer, it starts to become really real. And some people might feel a little nervous, and that's kind of how they were reacting to it. But I think once we got to, in New York in the negotiating space, there was nothing but solidarity. The communication between players and reps and the EC, like everybody was on the same page. And I think, like anything, right? Like on a team that's trying to win a championship, there's gonna be a period through the season where you face some adversity, and it's how you bounce back after that like is a test of your character as a unit. And that for us was a testing moment. And we showed that we became more solid. And honestly, I don't know how Breezy felt, but walking into that conference room and those conferences, I was like, oh baby, listen, there was everything thrown at us, every book, every trick, and we came out on the other side stronger than ever. And two, honestly, and I'm gonna say this here, but like I honestly think like when you have Black women that are in these types of moments, we know what it is to have to fight extra to just get what you're deserving of, and extra to prove that you're worth what you're asking for, and not to like dim the light on any of the other people that aren't. But it's like there's a different fight that you have to go after what you want. And it's no coincidence that a league full of Black women was having to push so hard to get what we deserve. But shout out to our union, shout out to our staff and the EC and everybody for just like coming back together and understanding that message and really pushing us through the finish line.
Yeah, she hit it. She hit all the parts. Snaps, claps,
I
all
think
of
that
it.
I don't think that Nneka Ogwumike gets a lot of credit, front-facing credit for the work that she's been able to do over the last few CBAs as the president of the EC. How would you both describe her leadership throughout the process, and what stood out to you about her leadership when you were under pressure?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Nneka got to keep playing until she like 60.
She has no
Nneka got to
choice.
lead these negotiations. Nneka got to just push through. I don't know, do some extra stretches, some yoga, some Pilates. She's gonna have to get her body to just push through. But like Nneka, just like the unsung hero, like just her calmness, her presence,
Mm-hmm.
not just in the negotiation room with like the league, but just like within the EC with on the players, like just the way like she just holds herself. And like I feel like whenever Nneka talks, like everyone stops and listens. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone just like her voice is so respected. And just knowing that she's been through these negotiations before, and like obviously she's been the president for like a long time, well deserved. I don't think anybody wants to challenge Nneka at that. But I mean, I can't say enough good things about her and her leadership, honestly.
Yeah, and she's just so intentional. She thinks through everything. I mean, everything, like every detail, even if she's going to have a conversation, she thinks through every detail. It's like, should I say that? Could it maybe make someone feel this way? Okay, let me rephrase it. And so when you have a leader that cares about how she makes everybody feel, that's the sign of a great leader. And as the president, she has to be able to meet everyone where they are and understand everyone's perspectives. Even if it's not a lived experience for her, she's doing everything that she can to understand like what that lived experience feels like. So then she can articulate it and be like a support system, right? Like she's never been a player that's on a minimum contract like we have. But the way that she sat and talked with us to understand like what's important to you guys, like what do you feel is missing, that to me just it speaks volumes of who she is, because she's getting outside of her own, where she operates and what she's experienced, and out of her own blind spots so that she can like be in that same lane with you. And so yeah, shout out to Nneka, because she's had to navigate a lot of different looks from the EC in terms of like what it looked like in 2020 to now, and just being able to lead different groups of people the way that she does, which it looks so effortless and flawless, but the work that she's putting behind to make sure she can do it. But to us, it looks like it's easy, like Sunday morning. And like Breezy said, Nneka, you got to play till you're 60, babe. Hate it for you, but I believe in you. If anybody can do it, it's going to be you.
Absolutely.
And looking at the highlights from some of the things you all fought for in this new CBA, there's so many different things. One of the things that was most notable was the stronger protections for pregnant players. It's now codified in the new CBA, and it set up really like a new standard. And I think about players like Dearica Hamby and the situation she went through in 2023. How important was it for you all to be able to continue to build and fight for, players to get what they deserve?
I would say that obviously we're a league of women and we don't want players to choose between like motherhood and their careers. I think far too often athletes are like once you have a kid, retire or take a step back. But we have like so many players in our league of multiple kids, Dearica,
It needs
DB,
to be
Sky
studied.
Diggs, like
They all listen. I'm telling you
I
something about
submit
it. They need to do a research study on this, because every single one of them, when you look over the course of our league, everyone who's had a child, they come back even better. Like it's so insane. Like it needs to be studied, because wow.
yes, Cheyenne Park. I mean, it's so many players, and like I think that it was just really important for working moms to like have a say in the future of their trajectory and their teams and careers and such.
Yeah. And I think too, just highlighting the differences between men's leagues and what they get for childcare and access to these things that a league of women doesn't get. And that was something that, with Fee being in the room, she was able to talk about it. Emma Cannon, she was talking about when they travel and like what's needed. And it's like these things are afforded to the NBA. Like, why are they not on our side too, when these are the bearing, the parents who bear the children? Like it doesn't. So I think again, just highlighting the blind spots in what a league of women should be having access to and our counterparts, and just bringing that to light.
And we're on the cusp of, a historic 30th season for the WNBA. But before all of that, I feel like April is going to be a chaotic month. We have two expansion drafts, the WNBA draft, free agency, WNBA preseason, training camp, just so much happening all in the span before the May 8th tip off. Can you give us insight into how that process is going to work? If any new details have come out about how the next month will look like for you all from the player side.
I
No
mean,
idea.
I feel like I can say with confidence we can trust the league's timeline. It's gonna be what like the expansion drafts, and then the free agency starts like April 6th, and then we have the WNBA draft. So I mean, I feel like a lot of this free agency stuff is on pause until like April 6th. So it's like in a month from now we're gonna be in different cities, states, time zones, potential different countries. So it's just a lot of unknowns. But at this point, we just go with the flow, take
We
it day by
thrive
day.
in chaos, baby. We thrive in chaos.
I want a little bit of tea. How are you both approaching your own free agency this time around? What's important for you?
I mean, honestly, I'm going in with a complete open mind because I'm like, at this point, the way everything is about to go, you can't approach this with any sort of like sure plan at all. But yeah, I mean, where I'm at in the stage of my career is just having access to resources that I can take care of my body properly. I just want to be somewhere where I'm valued, and somewhere I'm appreciated. Honestly, like that's my list. And then after I have conversations, I'll be able to make that decision. But yeah, that's my list.
Breezy?
Yeah, I feel like me, just like being around good people, good teammates, obviously good staff, front office, just having people with good energy around me. But yeah, pretty open as well.
I know that in previous free agencies, one thing that attracted free agents was the practice facilities and all of those different things. Now that's the standard with the new CBA. With teams, they have to have up to par facilities, and there's a standard that's
Mhm.
now being set going forward. Why was that important to also include and get it codified into the CBA?
I think to Breezy's earlier point, just creating a standard. When you have some teams that have their own practice facility, full-time chefs, resources out the wazoo, like that makes a huge difference. And then you go places where they barely have, they don't even have a doctor of physical therapy on their staff. Like these little details make such a big difference in the way that we show up as athletes on the floor. We would think that as the league, they would want their product to be the best possible product on the floor. And with that comes the access to these resources and those types of things. So I think forcing teams, because they're like, to be honest, like there's teams that don't want to invest. There's teams that don't want to, invest in their teams in that way. And we all know who they are, but it's like, okay, well, now they have to. And it's like, if you don't, okay, let someone else come in who wants to, because we have a ton of owners that have shown that they do want to invest. They do believe in us and they want to make sure that we're getting the very best. And so it's like, if you don't want to do that, allow someone who does want to. Let them come in and continue to elevate this league and continue to elevate our experiences as professional athletes and treat us as such. Like, we shouldn't be practicing in rec centers with 75 lines on the court and trying to figure out which one we got to shoot for. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. So yeah, let people who want to come in and invest in these players and invest in us as a league.
Yeah, absolutely. Felt like facilities shouldn't be a competitive advantage. Like that should just be the standard. A lot of players are obviously coming from college and like they like you shouldn't get a downgrade when you go to professional leagues. And just knowing that like and not everyone can just pick the spots that have this facility. Not everyone has like that freedom of choice to pick between all whatever 14 how many different spots? 15 different
15.
teams that you can choose from. So to make sure even if a player only had one option, they knew that option they will have a private facility. They will have like the same standard that everyone else has. It's not just because like well you can't go to a nicer place that's just like sucks for you, but you want to just make it just like a minimum standard so that everyone like starts at the same level. And yes, some teams might have other advantages on top of that, but I feel like a facility could just like be like a basic standard that every player can enjoy.
Hmm.
Like I can talk to you both about so many different highlights in this new CBA. I know that everyone else was excited about the two new added developmental roster spots and how that can help a team. From your perspective as players, as veteran players in the league, why was it so important to include, the roster spot additions?
I think one is because like when you come into this league, there's an adjustment period. Like it takes a while to be able to get accustomed to the flow of what the WNBA is, the physicality, understanding the style of play. And because our season was so short, it wasn't affording players that time to make that adjustment. And so adding the development of players gives that. And then two, because as the season goes, as we've seen over the years, like injuries happen. And there was a real struggle of being able to find hardship players to come in. And I mean, you're on a 7-day contract, and it's like, how can you possibly come in to an environment you aren't familiar with, come into a completely new team, try to fill a role and understand all the things that are happening within that span? And so this not only gives, I think, teams a little bit of assurance, and it gives them a little comfort to know, like, okay, we have some players that have been in our system that are here, that know our team, that know how we like to play, that would know their role when called up. That gives you a little comfort knowing, okay, if and when injuries happen, that we have people that are prepared to be able to step in. and add to the team.
Absolutely. And like AC said earlier, the average career is only like 3.5 years, 3, 4 years. So I think it's great to give the DPs experience, time with the team, learning from vets. So I feel like the experience is just like so great, and obviously having a couple more teams. So yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity for younger players.
A couple more before you both get out of here. I know that you both play in the off season for leagues like Athletes Unlimited. In your opinion, now that you guys are going to be making a lot more money from your WNBA salary, do you think that there will be longevity with these off season opportunities? Or do you think that the WNBA is going to be the standard and players won't have to go overseas anymore or play in these leagues in the off season?
I kind of feel like players will still try to play in the off season just to make sure they're like staying in shape and they're staying competitive. I think it can be kind of hard to finish playing in the fall and not start back up till like early summer, I guess late spring. But obviously it's to be an individual choice, but like AU is only a month, and I know obviously in Arrival 3-on-3 is just a couple months, and people can still take overseas opportunities. I mean, I think people, it's just like a personal decision. They want to like maximize their earnings opportunities or just maybe stay home. But I think it's going to just vary player to player.
And looking ahead for the 30th WNBA season, what are you both excited about the most, and just the impact you all have been able to make, the history that you all have been able to make with this new CBA?
I'm really excited just to see the fan support. I feel like I saw so many fans on socials just like really backing the players, being like, "We don't care if you strike, strike. I'm gonna support you whether you guys are playing or not." So it's just like really exciting to see just like how many fans were supporting us, whether we were gonna play or not, and just like really having our backs and being for the players. And obviously, I'm so excited that we get to play because I think this W's got some of the best fans of professional sports. So I'm really excited to see like 2 more teams out there and just see so many new fans across the country supporting the W this summer.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to see these changes in real life. You know, what it's going to do to the expanded roster sizes, these 2 new teams adding new players that maybe haven't had an opportunity to be able to get on a team because it was so hard to make a team. And it's like now there's more opportunities, more job opportunities. So the fans are going to be exposed to maybe some players that we probably knew about or played against, you know, overseas. That, I mean, when you look across the night, like Sammy Whitcomb, Rebecca Gardner, those players that just like it took a while because it just was hard to get on teams. But look at them, they're freaking rock stars, you know, and thriving. And, you know, the fans got to know them and love their stories. So I'm so excited to just have more opportunities for players to have their stories told, for fans to fall in love with new faces, and for, you know, everyone watching to be able to identify themselves with someone in this league now, because you're going to have more opportunities to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Well, AC, Breezy, thank you so much for joining us this week on In Case You Missed It, breaking everything down, all things WNBA CBA. Best of luck in free agency. We'll certainly be following up on where you all end up. And for the season tips off on May 8th. And that's going to do it for this week's episode.
Thank you.